I just came back from watching The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes in theaters. I'll take you on a little bit of a journey, okay? I read this book 2 years ago when it first came out. A year goes by, I forget most of the things that have happened, and then I decide to read it again. And there was a probably 3-month interval where I just did not read at all. So it was kind of just sitting on my desk rotting at the near end. And then November happened, and I was like, oh shit, the movie's coming out really soon. So I started reading it again, and I vlogged a little bit of it, so I'll put that in now. So it's currently midnight. Just want to say that I've read this book twice. Well, almost twice, because I'm almost done. But it's been here for the past like half a year. I wanted to finish the book right before the movie came out, so it was like fresh in my mind. But then I kind of just stopped reading because I hate reading. And then, yeah, 6 months go by, and now it's November 4th, and the movie comes out in 12 days. So I'm gonna finish the book sometime soon, and then I'm gonna go to the premiere of the movie and give my thoughts. So far, Olivia Rodrigo's song, oh my god, I'm literally so obsessed. Also, look at this otter. It lays flat like this. That was November 5th. Flash forward, the movie came out November 16th. And I still had one more chapter plus the epilogue to read before I watched the movie. So, on November 15th, right before I went to bed, I realized again, oh shit, I haven't finished the book. Oh my god, I'm literally so stupid. Okay. It just occurred to me that the movie is literally tomorrow. I'm going at 6 p.m., okay? It is, Google, what time is it?
It's 9:03 p.m.
And I was on the verge of falling asleep, but now I'm like, oh no, I need to finish this. Anyways, I'm just complaining. I'm being dramatic. It's not really a big deal, but it is a big deal. I forgot how awful the ending was. Actually, it was a really great choice for me to read the last chapter and the epilogue right before the movie, because the last chapter, as we know, is very action-packed, you could say. So, you know, getting to see all of that on screen the day right after was amazing. I had it fresh in my mind, and I'm gonna talk about that. Today I went to the theater. Today is premiere day, and there was nobody there. And by nobody, I mean like 10 people in the theater. A theater that is supposed to fit at least probably 100 had around 10 people there, which you would say is crazy, and you would consider the movie a flop, right? Honestly, maybe it is a flop. I mean, the Rotten Tomato score doesn't really help. But I looked at a bunch of other theaters, I looked at a bunch of other movies, I was like, why the hell is no one watching The Hunger Games? And the conclusion is that nobody's really watching movies in theaters in general. That's just the way it is. I was shocked. Even Five Nights at Freddy's, which came out like, I don't know, a week or two ago, it didn't really have anyone in the theater. So yeah, I was a little bit disappointed. Anyways, we went to see it in IMAX, which is larger screen, louder sounds. It was just really intense, okay? Like, not gonna lie, that movie, it was great seeing on a bigger screen, okay? I'm very glad we did that, but oh my gosh, there are so many jump scares in that movie. My ears, you don't understand. I literally jumped out of my seat at one point. I don't remember which part it was, but the sound in that theater was really, really crisp and really loud. Oh, by the way, there's spoilers here. This video is all spoilers. I guess I'll have a little bit of a general conversation about the movie. So first of all, it is 2 hours and 40 minutes, but I still feel like it was not enough time. I heard that this movie was originally 3 hours something, and then they had to cut it down. But in the end, I wish it was a whole hour longer. Okay, I wish it was 3 hours and 40 minutes. Reason being, they cut so much from the books. They didn't change too much. A lot of it was generally the same, but in general, even though the movie was so long, the book is also so long, and it deserved more time. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a very low score. I thought they were being really mean for no reason, but I can see why people don't like the movie. I think somebody who didn't read the books would be like, this is too long, this is too boring, not having it. Which sucks, because I know a lot of the Rotten Tomatoes critics did not read the books. It's a lot of story building. They actually do divide it into the 3 parts. So they start off part 1 with like a flash on the screen that says part 1, the mentor, and then part 2, the prize, and then at the end it's part 3, I can't remember, which is great. I actually thought that was very useful, but it was very, very fast paced. It kind of felt like we were watching 3 separate movies, and I do think it should have been 2 movies because the stuff that they covered is all very important. Like in every single part, there's death, there's mayhem, there's everything. It was probably like 50 minutes per part, I would say. It just wasn't enough time to process everything. This movie is also the darkest out of the 4. It was a lot more graphic. One thing is that the children look a lot younger. Dill and Wovi, oh my gosh, they were so young. And Lucy Gray is also a very small, dainty girl, compared to Katniss at least. They included a lot of people with disabilities. One of them was missing an eye, one of them was missing an arm. Wovi had Down syndrome, and then Dill was dying of tuberculosis. Jessup was dying of rabies. It was all just a lot more showing of how bad the districts really are in comparison to the 74th Hunger Games, where, you know, everyone's kind of chunkier and healthier. And I remember the actress for Clove, Isabella Furman, she auditioned for Katniss, but they said that she was too small looking because they didn't want it to actually look like these little kids were fighting. And now they're doing that. They made everyone look younger for this movie because I guess they just want to emphasize how awful it really was. And it worked because I was not okay. The deaths were also a lot more graphic. You know, in the original Hunger Games, when somebody dies, it's usually not shown on camera. But in this movie, ooh, it's so graphic. They have a lot of the like, and you get to see all of it. It's really getting down to the nitty gritty, you know? They're trying to make it look like as awful as possible. Like awful as in how messed up the Hunger Games truly is. There are 3 deaths where somebody falls from a tall spot and then they fall to the ground below. The first one being Marcus. Lamina cuts him from the ropes and then he falls down to the ground like maybe 6 feet, 7 feet, I don't know, onto concrete and rubble. And then they show the whole thing. They show him fall and it's like splat. You're not seeing like blood, but like the splat is, you know, their bodies smacking to the ground and all their bones are shattered, which is so scary. Jessup was also a really graphic death. He foamed at the mouth. It was a lot of foam. And then he dies and he hits his head and they show it all, which is, I thought it would be like a little bit more covered the way that the Hunger Games is. Despite all of the Rachel Zegler hate right now, holy shit, she did so well as Lucy Gray. She brings the character from the book into a whole other level by creating these emotions that I didn't even understand were in the book to begin with. In the book, Lucy Gray gives strong, independent woman. Okay, that's at least what I think. But in the movie, I think Rachel Zegler is really good at portraying her fear and her anger towards the Hunger Games. It was probably there in text and I just didn't put 2 and 2 together, but it was really nice to see like an actual face showing those emotions and showing how Lucy Gray is feeling as a tribute. She does this face of like suppressed anger. I'll insert a clip because I don't know if I'm explaining that properly, but she's really good at showing her emotions. The other actor I want to point out is Sejanus, Josh Rivera, actually dating Rachel Zegler in real life. Fun fact. His interpretation of Sejanus is exactly what I imagined for him. In the book, Sejanus is played out to be this nuisance of a guy. He is not wanted in the capital and he does not want to be in the capital, and he speaks his truth. Whenever there's something that upsets him, he will fight back. He will protest in his way. Sejanus's character is very, in the capital's eyes, is a very whiny little boy that can't be grateful for what he has. And Josh Rivera is great at showing it. He shows compassion, he shows anger, he shows sadness, he shows hope, which is really what Sejanus is, and I loved seeing it. And then the third notable actor I want to point out is, forget his name. Google. Who played Lucky Flickerman in The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes?
Lucky Flickerman was played by Jason Schwartzman.
Jason Schwartzman. I saw a TikTok that was like, nobody can replace my Stanley Tucci as Caesar Flickerman. If anyone is gonna play a Flickerman, it has to be Stanley. But honestly, Jason Schwartzman, perfect. Because in the book, Lucky Flickerman is portrayed as this character, okay? He is so strange and he's trying his best, but he's not very good. He wants to entertain, but he is a little bit goofy, he's a little bit silly, he's making a little bit of a fool out of himself. And that's exactly what it's like in the movie. Every time he spoke, I was laughing. He's just great at portraying, you know, the capital. What will the filming style be like? Before the movie came out, a few clips came out. It was Lucy Gray's Reaping and then also the Bloodbath Countdown. Not gonna lie, when I watched those at home, I was a little bit disappointed because the cinematography I did not like. Reason being, they used a lot of wide shot angles. It felt more like a fan-made film, which is really mean to say, but that was how I felt. I watched it a lot of times. I was like, I'm trying to understand it, but I couldn't get over it. Yeah, my big question was, is it all gonna look like this? Because when I was watching it at home, I was like, wow, this is looking a little bit tacky. Actually, being on the big screen made such a big difference. I barely noticed like the odd film choices. The one thing I noticed about the filming in particular is the aspect ratio. And the reason I noticed this is because, you know, in Catching Fire, we have that iconic scene where Katniss is going up to the arena and then the aspect ratio changes and then it's like that for the rest of the movie. I thought that was great, so I was paying attention to that in this movie and it did change. So I wasn't able to figure out what makes the aspect ratio change, but it had the black borders for a lot of the parts with no action, and then as the action begun, it would fill up the whole screen. It didn't happen all the time, and then it also happened in parts I didn't expect, but it wasn't like a gradual change that stayed like that. It was more just like cutting back and forth between this versus this. Sorry, I don't know the proper terms. And then one more thing is that the saturation on that movie was very high, but I feel like that's just a thing with all film these days. I noticed that with the Umbrella Academy, the newest 2 seasons, they were like saturation up to the top. This Hunger Games movie, I wouldn't say it's saturation to the top, but it is definitely more colorful and vibrant than the past Hunger Games movies. That's probably because, you know, we're in the capital now. It's a lot less depressing than the districts. I thought it was interesting. I did like the saturation. I think the more color, the better. In the end, it was filmed very well. It did have a movie feel. My biggest concern was that it was going to look like a fan-made film rather than a movie. It did look like a movie. It was actually really great. And being on the big screen helped a lot because I could barely notice it other than those like few scenes. The next question I had was, how will they portray Snow's inner monologue? So that's a huge part of the books. You'll have Snow making a grand decision. He has to pick whether to be good or bad. An example of that would be Snow doesn't like completely consider Sejanus as a friend. I think that's pretty given in the movie as well. But in the book, there's always something bad to consider before he actually takes action. His thoughts will be like, oh, I hate this person. And then he'll go and proceed to be best friends with that person. You know, like he's a very fake guy. Everything he does is a performance. In the book, he has some sort of conscience of what he's doing and what's good and bad, but then he proceeds to make kind gestures and everyone around him thinks he's such a good guy, like Sejanus. But you know, in the books we know that Snow actually doesn't really like Sejanus. He thinks of him more as annoying. I don't think Snow's evil inner monologue is portrayed very well in the movie. Reason being, I was watching with my friend and my brother. In the middle of the movie, my brother goes to me, wow, Snow seems really nice. And I like kind of saw where he was coming from because I think that was the point where Sejanus went into the arena and then Snow had to retrieve him. My brother was like, yeah, he's like really good friends to this guy. And I had to be like, no, he actually hates this guy for doing this. He thinks Sejanus is selfish and stupid. A lot of the times when he has an evil thought, it's not shown on camera. Which, understandable, they're not gonna have an inner monologue throughout the whole movie, but I do wish they found a way to incorporate it a bit more, maybe through facial expressions. I think, okay, Tom Blythe I think is a great actor, but you know how I explained that Lucy Gray has this face she does that shows that she's angry, sad, upset. Like, she's not saying anything, but she's showing that she's spiteful of the capital. I feel like Snow needed a little bit of that. Maybe a conversation with Sejanus and then he'll roll his eyes when he turns around. Because I guess to my brother it was giving friendship. It was giving best friends, which it's not supposed to be. Another question I had was, are Lucy Gray's last words still gonna be, well, I'm not made of sugar? Which they were, because I read the last chapter right before I watched the movie. I remembered a lot of the details, and yes, that last chapter in the woods was pretty spot on. I believe the last conversation Snow and Lucy Gray had together was pretty much word for word from the book. And then that ties into my last question, which was, will the end look like Snow is hallucinating the way that he thought he was? So in the book, he gets bitten by the snake that Lucy Gray planted, and then he thinks it's venomous. He thinks he's gonna die, and he starts sweating, he starts panicking, and he just overall like thinks he's going crazy. I thought it would be like when Katniss got stung by the Tracker Jackers. I thought it was gonna be a little trippy. I did wonder, are they gonna do it like that? Because in the end, they reveal that that snake was not venomous and he was just, placebo. The answer is no. They didn't make it look like he was going crazy. Well, he is crazy, but it was more so like he was angry crazy, not like hallucinating crazy. So no weird effects there, just him and the little wide angle shot being like, Lucy Gray, where are you? And it was really good. I really liked the way they did it. I think it's good that they didn't make him hallucinate, because I was a little bit confused in the book. I also want to talk about some similarities and differences between the book and movie. Number one is that I think they killed off Clementia. In the book, she gets bitten by the snake, and then she comes back with some sickness, and she's all scaly, she's gross. She's like, look what they did to me. And then her tribute is Reaper. In the book, Lucy Gray and Reaper are the last tributes alive. But I don't know. In the movie, when she got bitten by the snakes, she kind of just falls over and the peacekeepers drag her off. And then she doesn't come back ever again. So I think they killed her off, which is crazy because I thought in the books that Clementia was such a big part of it. So that was shocking to me. But Ashley, she was so good. I loved it. Another thing is that they included cameras in the arena. That was something that I was super curious about, because in the book, they just have one stationary camera at the top of the arena and it's shining down towards the cornucopia. And I was actually concerned for that, because in the book, it's portrayed as, oh, the Hunger Games this year are so boring because they're all hiding in the tunnels and we can't see any of it. So it actually spanned on for days and days and days and days. But in the movie, they added cameras in the tunnels. So we were able to see everything that was happening. Glad they added that in. Also, they didn't make Snow's mother, her compact, they didn't make it as big of a deal as it was in the book. Because in the book, he carries it around, he's like, this is my mother's scent. And then he has to scoop out the perfume in order to put the rat poison in. And he tells Lucy Gray, like, this is my prized possession, you can have it. But by the way, there's poison in here. But in the movie, it's not that big of a deal. He just like mid-movie, he takes it, he puts rat poison in it, he's like, here you go. And then, Lucy Gray uses it. That's about it. And also, the deaths in the games were different than the books. Important changes of the tribute deaths. First of all, Dill doesn't make it to the actual arena. She dies beforehand of tuberculosis. So it's interesting that in the movie, Dill and Reaper have some sort of relationship similar to Lucy Gray and Jessup's, where Reaper wants to protect Dill. Also, in the book, Wovie, oh my god, she's so adorable. In the book, she's actually the one that drinks the poison water that Lucy Gray leaves out. But in the movie, Dill takes it and she dies from that. In the book, when the drones come into the arena and they shatter into little pieces, the District 3 tributes actually take them and they turn them into something new that can kill other tributes. The District 3 tributes actually end up killing Mizzen with the drones, which I think is one of Coral's allies. But that doesn't happen in the movie. Nobody rewires the drones. And yeah, they also didn't really include the drones very much, only for water. They were able to select items to bring to their tributes. And I think in the book they've provided things like bread, but in the movie, water was the only thing that was sent. In the movie, Coral is the big scary one, okay? Coral kills Tanner. And then I believe it's Mizzen that dies from rat poison from Lucy Gray afterwards. I think 3 of them die from the snakes in the book, and then the last 3 remaining are Treach, Reaper, and Lucy Gray. Treach dies because Lucy Gray grabs one of the snakes and actually attacks him with it. So she has control over these snakes while she's still competing against these other tributes. And then Reaper dies of dehydration. That doesn't happen in the movie. Everyone just, at the very end, gets swallowed by snakes and Lucy Gray is the final winner. They think that she's going to also get swallowed by snakes, but then she breaks out in song and then the snakes love her, and then that's about it. But I don't know. I wish it was a little bit more creative than just all of them dying to the snakes. I guess it's important to the storyline though, because Dr. Ghoul wants everybody to suffer. She wants to prove that she doesn't care about district life. So the fact that it killed all these people so instantly is it's good for Dr. Ghoul's storyline. It's just not how it played out in the books, which it's okay. Now we have two versions. In the book, Reaper had a bigger role, and then Coral had a smaller role because Coral was more so in the tunnels and then Reaper was out at the cornucopia most of the time, which because there was only one camera pointing down, we saw a lot of Reaper, not as much as Coral as we did in the movie. And then we slowly watched Reaper die of dehydration. But I guess because they had to make the movie a lot more fast-paced, they didn't really have time for that Reaper storyline. It was still good. The Hunger Games portion of the movie was good. In the book, a lot of part 3, like being in District 12, is Snow visiting Lucy Gray. I was wondering when they're gonna go to Lucy Gray's house. When is Snow gonna deliver a bag of ice to the Covey? Stuff like that. But none of that happened. It was very fast paced. Like pretty much right off the bat when they arrive in District 12, Sejanus is already starting to talk to Billy Tope about running away. And then on top of that, they don't really have that peacekeeper trainee family that they had in the books. Sejanus never got Ma's baked goods, which I thought was great in the book. I loved reading about the little presents of food that he would get every day from his mother. Unfortunately, that didn't happen in the movie. Finally, a big comparison of the book to the movie is that Sejanus' parents don't really exist. We see them, I think, once or twice in the movie, which sucks because they played such a big role in the books. I don't think the movie emphasized enough that Sejanus' family came from district. So they bought their way into the capital, basically going from district to capital, but everybody in the capital believes that they don't belong. And Sejanus also thinks he doesn't belong. Sejanus doesn't particularly want to be at the capital, but he knows the consequences of being in district. That's why he's seen as a little bit angsty. And then the idea is that Sejanus' mother, Ma, she's a little bit unhinged. She's not capital at all. She's giving district. And then the dad is like, come on, we gotta show them that we're capital. Whenever Sejanus gets into trouble, the parents are there to be like, oh, Coriolanus, I'm so sorry my son had to put you through that. Oh, Coriolanus, thank you so much for saving my son. Thank you for being such a good friend to my son. And that's where a lot of Snow's like inner monologue comes along, where he's like, ugh, these people are so district. And then out loud he'll be like, it's okay, my pleasure. You know, like he's just very like snaky. Near the end of the book, Tigress has to find somewhere else to live with the Grandman because they can't afford to live at the apartment anymore. But then at the end of the movie, we see that they're back in their apartment and they don't really explain why. But in the book, it explains that the Plinths actually bought the apartment for them as gratitude for being there for their son, which is so smart on Snow's part, by the way. I believe Dean Casca Highbottom talks about it at the very end where he's like, well done, you played the Plinth so hard. But like it just sucks that we didn't get to see that relationship because I thought it was a really interesting one in the book. And then in the movie, they kind of just don't exist. I actually have this funny diagram I'll show you here. So this is a timeline of my thoughts towards Snow over time. So the higher it is the more I hate Snow, and the lower it is the more I am okay with him. During the first Hunger Games, I really did not like Snow. I was like, this guy sucks. And then during Catching Fire, I was like, oh, he sucks, but he's just an old man. I have really bad old people sympathy, okay? I was like, I'm gonna let him slide because it's already been 2 movies. And then by book 3, aka Mockingjay, I was like, you know what? He's just a poor little old man and he's about to die. And then I just stopped hating him, okay? For some reason, Snow's intelligence just makes me feel like he's not doing anything wrong, which is really bad. And I definitely shouldn't think that way. But anyways, then I read the 4th book and my hate for him was at an all-time low. Why? Because I was like, oh, he actually has reason for everything he does. He's poor, he lost everything, he's trying his best to be at the top. And overall, like, even though he had bad thoughts, he also made some good choices, which made me go, oh, he's not the worst. And then the end happened, and I was like, hell no, at the top for you. As time went on, I stopped caring, and I was like, oh, Snow's fine. And then after the trailer, I was like, who is that sexy motherfucker? or Tom Blythe. I can't hate that guy. He's too hot to hate. Hello. And then I read the ending yesterday. So here we are at the top. Okay, hold on. Let me sit my ass back down. I enjoy characters that have reason, and I feel like Snow had a lot of reason. Is it good reason? I don't know about that. Throughout the original Hunger Games series, you don't get to see his point of view. You don't get to see why he made all these decisions. But yeah, I really hope that they come out with more content. I know it's probably not gonna happen, but the idea of a Netflix series with the different years of the Hunger Games happening was a great idea. Those are my insights. I hope it was descriptive. I hope it wasn't like all over the place, because I genuinely just need to talk about it. I need to talk about my thoughts and opinions. So there they are. Anyways, I'm gonna go and look for a Reddit thread now. See if anyone else has the same thoughts that I do, because I can't have any original thoughts on my own. Bye!